Ethan almost ignored the invitation when it appeared on his phone. His cousin Brandon had never gone out of his way to include him in anything. Family holidays, birthday parties, business celebrations, Ethan was always the last person invited, if he was invited at all. Growing up, he had learned that being the son of a mechanic in a family full of wealthy business owners made him invisible. His cousins drove luxury cars before they turned 21, while Ethan spent weekends changing brake pads and fixing engines beside his father. So when Brandon suddenly texted, "Family isn't complete without you. Hope you'll come tonight," Ethan stared at the screen for several minutes. It didn't sound like Brandon. His best friend, Marcus, glanced over his shoulder during lunch. "You're actually thinking about going?" Ethan shrugged. "Maybe they've grown up." Marcus laughed quietly. "People like Brandon don't usually wake up one morning and become kind." "I know. So why go?" Ethan folded the phone and slipped it into his pocket. "Because if I don't, they'll say I never gave them a chance." Marcus sighed. "I just don't want to see you get hurt again." Neither did Ethan. But deep inside, there was still a small part of him that wanted a real family. That evening, after finishing his shift at the repair shop, Ethan returned to his small apartment. He stood in front of the mirror wearing the only suit he owned. It wasn't expensive, but it fit well because his mother had carefully saved money years earlier to buy it for his first job interview. She had passed away 2 years ago. Whenever he wore that suit, he remembered her words. "Never let someone else's money decide your worth." Those words stayed with him as he drove toward the luxury hotel where the engagement party was being held. The entrance alone looked like something from a movie. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Valets hurried from one vehicle to another. Bright lights reflected against polished marble floors visible through the enormous glass entrance. Ethan handed over the keys to his 10-year-old pickup truck. The young valet smiled politely. "Have a wonderful evening, sir." That simple respect meant more than the valet probably realized. Inside, the ballroom glittered beneath enormous crystal chandeliers. Soft music floated through the air while waiters carried silver trays filled with expensive appetizers. Everyone seemed perfectly dressed. Designer suits. Diamond necklaces. Luxury watches. Ethan instantly felt underdressed despite wearing his best clothes. A few relatives noticed him entering. Their smiles looked forced. Brandon approached with open arms. "There he is." Brandon shouted loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "My favorite cousin." Ethan almost laughed. Brandon had never once called him that. Brandon hugged him just long enough for photographers nearby to capture the moment. "You made it," Brandon said. "I wasn't sure you'd come. You said family should stick together." Brandon smiled. "Exactly." Something about his grin made Ethan uneasy. As Brandon introduced him to different guests, Ethan noticed something strange. People kept exchanging looks. Some whispered before quickly looking away. Others smiled as though they already knew something Ethan didn't. He tried ignoring it. Maybe he was imagining things. He grabbed a glass of sparkling water and stood near one of the tall windows overlooking the city skyline. An elderly waiter approached. "Can I bring you anything else, sir?" "I'm fine. Thank you." The waiter nodded kindly. Unlike many guests, the hotel staff treated Ethan with genuine respect. Across the room, Ethan noticed Brandon speaking with several friends. They all glanced toward Ethan. One of them laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink. Brandon whispered something else. More laughter. Ethan's stomach tightened. Marcus had warned him. Still, he told himself not to assume the worst. The evening continued with speeches, music, and endless conversations about business deals, vacation homes, and investment opportunities. Ethan had little to contribute. He listened politely whenever someone spoke to him, but most conversations ended after a minute or two. One woman asked where he worked. "I manage repairs at Walker Auto." "Oh." Her smile disappeared instantly. She excused herself less than 30 seconds later. Ethan wasn't offended anymore. He had seen that reaction his entire life. Money changed how people measured others. Near the buffet table, he noticed a young woman wearing a simple blue dress standing alone. Unlike everyone else, she wasn't talking or laughing. One hand rested protectively on her pregnant belly. She looked nervous. Almost frightened. Several guests glanced toward her before whispering among themselves. Ethan considered walking over just to say hello, but before he could move, Brandon stepped onto the small stage at the center of the ballroom. He tapped a spoon against a crystal glass. "Ladies and gentlemen." The conversation slowly faded. "I'd like everyone's attention for a very special surprise." Guests gathered closer. Phones appeared. Some people were already recording. Ethan frowned. Brandon looked directly at him. "Our cousin Ethan has been single for years." Scattered laughter. Brandon continued. "We figured tonight was the perfect chance to finally help him find true love." More laughter echoed through the ballroom. Ethan's chest tightened. This wasn't part of an engagement celebration. This was about him. Brandon extended one arm dramatically toward the nervous pregnant woman standing near the wall. "Come on over." She hesitated. Her eyes briefly met Ethan's. He immediately noticed something heartbreaking. She looked just as confused and uncomfortable as he felt. Slowly, she walked toward the stage while the room watched. Every step seemed heavier than the last. Brandon wrapped an arm around her shoulders with an exaggerated smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced loudly, "meet Olivia." The room grew strangely quiet. Brandon's grin widened. "She's 6 months pregnant." A few people began chuckling before he even finished. "And since nobody else wanted either of them," he continued, "we figured they'd make the perfect couple." The ballroom erupted with cruel laughter. Some guests clapped. Others pointed their phones directly at Ethan. Someone shouted, "Kiss her." Another yelled, "Perfect match." Ethan didn't move. He wasn't embarrassed because Olivia was pregnant. He was horrified because an entire room full of adults thought humiliating another human being counted as entertainment. Then he looked at Olivia. She was staring at the floor. Her eyes shimmered with tears she was desperately trying to hide. In that single moment, Ethan realized something. She wasn't part of the joke. She was another victim. And whatever happened next would define not only his character, but everyone else's.